Hey guys, it's Julia and welcome back to my channel, and for today's video I'm going to be doing my January reading wrap up, talking about all the books that I read throughout the month of January and my thoughts on them and all that sort of stuff. But this month I read a total of 11 things, which with exams and just starting off the new year and just it was a very stressful month. But that being, I think I'm happy with what I read, and I'm not in a huge push to read a ton of stuff this year, so I'm just happy with what I read. And some of it was very, I gave a lot of low ratings this month and a lot of decent ratings, but I didn't give any 5s out, which I never give 5s out anyways. But let's just get into the wrap up. So I read was The Sleeper and the Spindle by Neil Gaiman. This is a fairy tale retelling. It is a mashup between Sleeping Beauty and Snow White, and I read this soon as the countdown went off for midnight, January 1st, woohoo. A couple, I don't know, 20 minutes later, I was like, let's read the first book of the year. I picked this up and I read it, and it was really interesting. I mostly read it because of Neil Gaiman, and because I really like his work. I definitely love his writing style, and the way he just the way he writes makes me get really sucked into his stories, so that's why I wanted to read it. And I had this out on ebook, I had it on overdrive, and I was reading it on my iPad, and then later I bought a physical book. But it was a really nice way to start off the year. It definitely didn't blow me away. It's not a favorite or anything, but I did give it a 3.5 out of 5. I also have a review for this, so if you want to check that out, if you're interested, I will link it up on the screen. But yeah. And next, I read The Lost Herondale by Cassandra Clare. This is the second book in the Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy series, which this is the novella series that takes place after City of Heavenly Fire, and City of Heavenly Fire being the last book in the Mortal Instruments series. So if you have not read the Mortal Instruments series or the Infernal Devices series, do not pick up these novellas. Well, don't read them online, don't read them on ebook because you can't buy them. But don't look up reviews or synopses or anything, because you'll be spoiled, and I don't want you to be spoiled for a really good series. So yeah, but overall, I listened to this novella on audiobook, and I really liked it. I thought it was really well done. It wasn't amazing, it didn't blow me away or anything, but I really loved the narrator and how he narrated the story, and it was really entertaining. And I forgot how much I enjoyed Cassandra Clare's writing, because I haven't read a book by her in a little bit now, so I was really happy I read that, and I gave it a 4 to 5 stars. Next, I read Red Dragon by Thomas Harris. This is the first book in the Hannibal Lecter series. This is about Will Graham, who gets called to work on another case, and he gets called by Dragon Crawford to help with another case, and he goes back to see Hannibal to ask for help with this case, and it is really interesting. And definitely for me, I wanted to read this because of the TV show. Even though I bought this before I even started watching the TV show, but I want to read this because of the TV show. It really pushed me to give it a read, and I mean, I really loved, it was really interesting, comparing things and everything. But this book didn't blow me away in any way at all, but I like comparing things, and some things that happen in this kind of happen in the show, but it's they're different timelines, completely different timelines. So it's kind of interesting how they incorporated stuff from the book, especially because it's not based on the books. It's even on the TV show, it says inspired by the characters from Red Dragon by Thomas Harris. But I enjoyed reading this though, to see characters that I already knew and kind of loved, and just to read it like that. But definitely, I think if you don't already know these characters, I don't know how much you'll be able to understand and get from this book. That's just my personal opinion, but I don't know, since I already knew so much about them and everything, it just really made the characters way more enjoyable for me and to read about. For a book that's the terrifying classic that introduced Hannibal Lecter, there wasn't that much of Hannibal as you would think there would be. And the killer that's involved in this book, we call him the Tooth Fairy, and later we call him the Dragon and everything, but it was interesting being in his head and how he kind of worked. But some things that happened were just a little bit out of the norm. But I am glad that I read this, definitely. It's one of those books that you spend time away from and you're happy, I'm glad I read that, but I wasn't entertained at times. The last 100 pages of this though, I really enjoyed. So yeah, but I also did a review for this, so if you're interested, I'll have a link up on the screen and everything if you want to check out more of my thoughts on it. But I gave it a 3.25 to a 3.5 out of 5, so yeah. Book I read was Hellogoodbye and Everything in Between by Jennifer E. Smith. This is a YA contemporary book about two people who are in a relationship, and they are both going to separate colleges and going to be parting their ways, and they have their last night together before they both go away, and they're trying to decide if they should stay together or if they should break up. And throughout their night, going back to the places where they had their first kiss, their first date, and all these moments that mean something to them, and they're trying to figure out, like, they're trying to find something that will help them make their decision that night and for what they should do. Overall, I thought this book was very entertaining. I couldn't really make up my mind if I liked the characters or not. Like, it was something like I had kind of a love-hate relationship with these characters. Like, I enjoyed them together, but as individuals, I didn't really care for them that much. And our main female lead, I kind of found her irritating at times, which is not unusual, but yeah, I really enjoyed the concept of this novel though, and I definitely like Jennifer E. Smith's writing. It's kind of simplistic, but it always incorporates some nice messages, and it's kind of a little bit refreshing, and that was really nice about it as well. And I did it, like, some parts I really enjoyed, like them going to the lake and then playing ping pong, and just some little aspects were kind of fun. The ending was a little bit but it kind of worked out. And I do have a review for this as well, so I'll link that up on the screen if you are interested. But I gave this book a 3.75 to a 4 out of 5 stars. Next book I read was Losing Hope by Colleen Hoover. This is the companion novel to Hopeless by her, and Hopeless is like a new adult book about, like, it's a romance, like a very, very complicated romance, just saying. But this is kind of in the male's point of view of Hopeless, and these books like this have become very difficult for me to rate and review and things like that. That's just because they're so unbelievably entertaining and gripping and quick to read and enjoyable, but there's always little things about them that I just, like, it's new adult, like, I don't know. Sometimes I just have little things about them, but this book, like, even on my review I was saying, like, it's sad, it was heartbreaking, it was emotional, which all those things are true, and, like, the whole time I was like, man, this is, like, almost better than Hopeless. Like, this is good, this is almost better than Hopeless. And it's nothing like reading that book for the first time. Like, it's nothing like reading the story for the first time and, like, being shocked and heartbroken and things. Like, you know what was gonna happen. Like, that was one of the things that was like, you know what's gonna happen. But it was nice seeing stuff from Dean Holder, like, before he saw Skye in the store and before he met her and things like that. But it was nice seeing and learning more about Holder, and definitely, if you liked Hopeless, definitely pick this up. Like, it does add something for you, so definitely pick this up. It's really enjoyable, and it's, like, it's a good book, and it's definitely flawed. Like, the story in general is flawed, but it is a good story, and just some things didn't agree with me, but it does kind of give you more insight to Holder, and definitely some things that he does, like some reasoning behind it. Some things that happen though, I'm just a little about, but overall it's a nice story, and it's entertaining. It's a good book. I would recommend it, and I gave it a 3.75. Month I'm going to be trying to read one classic a month this year, and the classic I read was The Great Gatsby by Scott Fitzgerald. I want to pick this one up because I have heard that it's some people's favorite classic, so I was like, better read that. And I did already own it, so I was like, all right. But I also listened to this one on audiobook and everything. Fortunately, I did not enjoy this. I did not care for this story at all. The characters I all found really, really boring. Like, Gatsby was kind of Gatsby was interesting, like, okay, but other than that, like, I had no feelings for this book. I never was smiling, never felt sad, never cared really for this book at all. Like, I was bored most of the time. The narrator made this sound so dull and boring, and half the time I didn't know what was going on either, so I barely finished the audiobook. Like, I put on the top speed for the last, like, hour, and I just flew through the last part because I could not finish this barely. And it is short. You're probably like, it's so short, like, but if it's like a 5-hour audiobook, and you don't like it, it's going by very slow in your head. But I didn't give this a 1 because I did, like, there is so much potential for this book, and it did have a cool atmosphere. It's not horrible, like, it's not garbage. Like, I wouldn't burn it. Actually, never mind, I wouldn't burn it, but no, I will have to reread this for school in the future, probably. So I think I am still leaving, like, an option open that I might enjoy it in the future, and maybe studying it and analyzing it and things like that, and reading it physically will make me enjoy it a bit more. But I didn't enjoy it. I gave it a 2 out of 5. Next book I read was The Shock of the Fall by Nathan Filer. This is a book that involves mental illness and grief, and this book I had a really interesting experience with. I kind of had a love-hate relationship with the writing style of it definitely takes a lot to get used to because it is quite different the way it's narrated, but I had a love-hate relationship, but the writing style definitely grew on me throughout it, and it grew on me, you know. But this is one of the books that, like, I did a whole recommendations video on books that stand out to me amongst so many other books, and this is the book that inspired me to make that video in the first place, and this book is in that video. But this book was so different from mental illness books I've read, and the writing style is so different and unique, and it's so interesting. This is also on the small little list of books that I've read that have been hard for me to read, like in an emotional sense. Like they're hard to read because it's so emotional. Like I only have like a couple books that have made me like I'm kind of like backing up and I'm like on the edge of my seat and I'm like nervous for what's gonna happen. Those kind of books that I just are hard to read at times because of like what's happening. I have a very, like, that doesn't happen often at all, and this was like, I had that with this book. I did like write down in my review that I'm looking at right now. It's like, it's a story about grief and loss, the drive of madness as well. So watching someone grow and develop. Also, we got flashbacks of the past. We often move quickly from past and present. That's something I wanted to mention about this, and it did have some really nice quotes as well. And like throughout the book, like he gets like a typewriter. I don't know if you can see the font style changing, but he gets a typewriter throughout it, so the font style kind of changes. It's like really interesting to read, and it has small chapters and like chapter headings that are quite entertaining. So definitely this is like an entertaining read, and it's definitely something that I think you could get through pretty quickly. There's also like little pictures throughout it as well, like little ones sometimes, or like that. But it was definitely a interesting book, and I gave this a 3.75 out of 5. Next, I read Finding Cinderella by Colleen Hoover. This is the 2.5 in the Hopeless series. So there's Hopeless, Losing Hope, and then there's like a 2.5, which is the side characters' relationship. And I got this in the mail because like I ordered it obviously, and I got it in the mail and I just read it that night, and it was so easy to read. Like I read it less than an hour. It was super quick, super interesting. Like it was such a quick read. Like if you're ever in a reading slump, Colleen Hoover is for you. If you're ever struggling, if you ever need something like a really fast read, Colleen Hoover is always there for you to give you a book to read. And this one I did enjoy. It wasn't like the best little thing ever, but definitely if you like Hopeless and Losing Hope, definitely pick this up. I gave this a 3.5 to 3.75, so good. Next, I read Illuminate by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is a sci-fi book that kind of involves two ships and these two people, and I don't want to talk about it, what it's about very much. It's kind of a bit difficult to explain, especially because this book is really popular. You've probably seen it around if you watch BookTube a lot, but it is written in like the coolest format like ever, and it is written like case files and documents and interviews, and it is so amazing to read, and it is so fun. Oh my gosh, this book definitely was like a big wow for me. Like I wasn't sure how I was gonna like this because it is sci-fi and it's not really my thing, but I definitely was happy I read this. If you're looking to get out of your comfort zone with sci-fi or anything like that, definitely pick this up. It's like some of the dialogue like flew over my head a bit, like some of the terminology was just like whoosh. But as soon as I picked this up, like a lot of people said, like get to the 200-page mark and you'll be hooked, but I was hooked at the very beginning. I was so into it, and then at parts it kind of fell flat for me, but like near the beginning all I cared about was Ezra and Katie's relationship. That's all I cared about. I didn't care about what else was happening. I was just like their messages, like all the other stuff, since it didn't really make sense at the moment. I was like really just enjoying their romance, but as the story went on I definitely got more into it. Sometimes like some parts it was like woo doo doo, like you know what I mean. It was just like a roller coaster for me of how much I was enjoying it and things like that. Like sometimes I was so bored, and then sometimes I was like this is so amazing, oh my god. And the ending, like the last 100 pages were like amazing. But Ezra so much, and Katie I hated at the beginning, but I grew to like her throughout the book, which was good because she's definitely there. And this book definitely made me want to pick up more sci-fi and things like that. Definitely enjoyed it at times. Again, I was kind of all over the place with this one, but I gave it a 3.75. I definitely recommend this. It was very entertaining and very interesting, so I recommend this. Next, I have The Grown Up by Gillian Flynn. This is a short story that she wrote, and I've read everything that Gillian Flynn has published so far, and I was so happy to read this when this came out, and I just never read it till now. It's been out for a little while, I think since November, but I finally picked it up, and I loved it. This was really good. I don't read a lot of short stories because I'm like, it's a short story, like, I don't know, but this was good. I'm not gonna talk about too much what it's about. It's best to read it without knowing anything because it is a short story. Like, what, you want to know the whole plot for a short story? That's like the whole book, you know. It's not long, so I just recommend to this not knowing what it's about very much, but this was good. Like, Gillian Flynn knows what's up. She knows how to do a short story. Like, she definitely got that message across to the reader. This was very interesting. The only thing that lagged for me was the ending. It was a little, like, it was good. It didn't like make me want to like throw this book out the window, but like it was an okay ending. But I definitely think she could have made this story into a whole book because it was really interesting. Actually, I don't know how that would work, and it had such a good story, such a good premise, and good writing, and I really, like, it was good. Like, I was like reading it and I was like the whole time I was like so into it. Like, I was so into this and it was really good, but because of the ending, I only ended up giving it a 4 or 5 stars. Otherwise, it would have been a little bit higher, but I gave it a 4 or 5, so. The last book I read was When We Wake by Karen Healy, and don't let this confuse you. Like, yes, it has pretty typography, like a nice spine, a nice back, but, this book was not good. First, let me tell you what it's about. It's basically about a girl who dies and she wakes up in the future, and it's like, I saw the footage, everyone else did. Watching the footage doesn't spark a thing. It could be a perfectly stranger dying on the steps of Parliament House, but it was me. I woke up 100 years later. And I saw this in the bargain section. It was like $5 and I was like, yeah, sure. But this was by Scott Westerfeld and Sean Williams, and this wasn't good. This put me in the biggest reading slump ever. Like, I just read, this was the last book I read, and right now I don't want to read anything because I'm just like, this was so bad. Like, I didn't like this at all. I just read this book. I had so many problems with it. Like, so many problems with it. Like, I did like a whole ranty review talking about everything that I hated basically about it, but there were so many things wrong. So many things. Like, there was some good, like, it has an interesting premise, okay? Like, and some parts that I did like was, like, in the future, like, no one ate meat. It was, like, everyone was, like, pescatarian. Like, no one ate meat at all, which was, like, the only, like, personal thing, like, I kind of liked about it. And, yeah, no. This was bad. It was pretty bad. I gotta say, it was pretty boring, and it was pretty pointless as well. It just wasn't good. It wasn't good. A lot of things bothered me, like the romance, because it was such a bad romance. It was such a bad romance, oh my gosh. And everything that happened, I couldn't care for it any less. It was not good. I gave it 2 out of 5, so let's not talk about it anymore because it wasn't good. I don't want to talk about it. Look at this little stack, it's cute. So these are all the books I read throughout the month of January. Let me know your thoughts if you've read any of these books or would like to. I hope you enjoyed my wrap up, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.